Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm gonna show you how to make UVs on our glove and to bake textures in Marmoset. I'll create UVs in Maya. For me it's the most handy software. At first I select all mesh and make automatic UV as a base. Then I sew it all together to exclude any unweld points and missing polygons. They will be marked as white seams. I usually begin with selecting most evident pieces like caps or white planes. First you need to select edges where you want to cut the shells. When you selected the cut edge loop, you press cut button. So you made first shell and you can continue cutting shells in this way. Of course there are a lot of patterns and rules on how to cut hand or any other body part. But I myself just try to find the areas that can easily become planes when they are unwrapped. You can just unwrap cylindrical parts like fingers, cutting the bottom and top. You always need to cut them alone. When you finished cutting edges, then you select all polygons and click Unwrap button. You can of course unwrap shell by shell, but if you'll gain more experience, you'll start to see in your mind how those shells can be unwrapped during making cuts. When I unwrapped everything at once, I can see also where I could miss the cut or correct something if I need to. When you're happy with unwrapped shells, you can also turn shells in the right direction, if you want to, but it doesn't really matter. Before UV layout, I always deselect the shells that won't be seen with all the details and place them out of borders to free space for more important shells. And then I pack everything, usually automatically. After that I place invisible shells with low texel on the free space manually. And then I check everything with checkered texture. Squares should be straight and without distortion. This is the basics. I'll be talking about texel density padding, aligning squares, U-Dims in my next UVs videos. Then you can export high poly model. First I bake all layers. And then I delete all UVs from our high poly mesh, because UVs really increase the file size a lot. You can also delete hidden from your stitches mesh if you have something hidden in the brush. And then we merge all our meshes into one, keeping polygroups. And so you have main mesh and stitches in different polygroups. We need this for ID map. Then export high poly model. I usually keep polygons under 50 millions for each mesh, because ZBrush can freeze you and export the file, and Marmoset can crash when the high poly mesh is too large. And so we go into Marmoset Toolbag, the most suitable baking software for me. Import the low poly mesh with our UVs. After that you import high poly mesh. When you import high poly, you can see that it contains two polygroups created in ZBrush. I usually assign different materials on such polygroups. Then we create our baking group on clicking bread button. We drop high poly mesh to high and low poly mesh to low. After that we can adjust the cage. Try not to make very big cage and far from the surface. I always make test bake of normal map and ambient occlusion map in low resolution, so you can see if everything is fine and if there are no many artifacts. Choose the location for future textures and their name and format. And then click Bake button. After that you can assign the created normal map to our low poly mesh. Here I want to bake ambient occlusion map because it makes artifacts more visible, and also drop it into our mesh. Artifacts usually appear when the cage is too close to the surface and the cage can't capture high poly surface. To correct this, go to Paint Offset and change the value of the brush. Start painting on artifacts so you increase the cage level on spots. Play also with the brush level and size to clean the artifacts up. When you're happy with the result, you can increase resolution and samples and also choose other maps to bake. Don't forget about Mat ID for stitches. These are the main maps that I use for Substance Painter. Then click Bake and wait. And so we have our maps ready for Substance Painter. Let's set up some light to better see the textures. Today we baked in a simple way, and I will speak about group baking and how to avoid intersection artifacts on a single mesh in my next baking videos. And that's all, our textures are ready for texturing in Substance Painter. Thank you for your attention and see you in next videos.